So good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Thompson. I am from AMD. I manage our global cloud product. So across AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, as well as Oracle Cloud, I manage our product team that helps people like you take advantage of the optimizations that you can get through simple platform choice, which is, in my observation, a little bit of a novel concept in FinOps practices, although it's becoming more common right now. This is my first FinOps X, and so far I found it very exciting, very engaging, very high quality attendees where all the conversations are very much worthwhile, with everybody focused on the same topic, financial optimization. I wanted to join the FinOps Foundation with AMD, as well as come to FinOps X in order to help educate the community about how to think different. There are some common myths about TCO reduction that revolve around cloud infrastructure choices. For example, a lot of people believe that if you just look at the hourly cost of a virtual machine or of an instance, that actually determines your TCO. Well, it doesn't. I think understanding of that is becoming more common, but I really wanted to help the community understand the impact of performance on cost. It goes beyond just looking at the hourly cost or the monthly cost or the yearly cost of that infrastructure, and help stop wasting cloud OpEx. So the agenda for today is to first encourage you to think different. Performance of the infrastructure you're using, of really the servers that you're using out in the cloud or even on-prem, really makes a difference, has a big impact on the net cost of your operations. We'll look at performance-driven cost optimization, which is a way to use the performance of the CPU that's running in whatever server that you happen to select. How can that performance drive cost efficiencies, energy efficiencies, as well as maximize performance for the applications that you run where the performance actually matters. If you have end users hanging off your application, performance matters. And then we'll have a quick look at the free optimization assessment and recommendation tools that are available from AMD for you to use to evaluate your estates. But also we have a lot of integration into the FinOps ecosystem with lots of partners leveraging that and working on it. And then we'll look at next steps. Okay, so think different. Performance matters. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people presume that the hourly cost of a virtual machine or an instance running in the cloud determines your TCO. So we're taking an example here where we're baselining, normalizing to virtual machine A. We're saying that's 1x the cost. If you have VMB at 15% higher cost, a lot of times people in their infrastructure management will stop right there and say, okay, well, this VMB is more expensive, so I'm not going to use it. But what if that VMB is double the performance of the first? Does that change the economics? And the answer is yes. If you net out the cost of a job running on both of these virtual machines, even though the one in blue is 15% more expensive per hour because it's so much higher performance, it yields a 42% lower operational cost. In my observation in the last year, having talked to dozens of customers and dozens of partners, I think the understanding that performance can drive cost optimization is becoming more common, but I wouldn't say it is common in general yet. Companies with really mature FinOps practices maybe are aware of this and take some advantage of it, but I think a lot aren't. And so this is the main idea that I'm hoping to convey to you today. Performance matters. You should consider that when you're either selecting your infrastructure to land applications or you're migrating from on-prem to the cloud. You should think carefully about where you land your applications. Or if you're doing the self-healing that the last speaker spoke about and you already have infrastructure deployed and you need to optimize it, you should think carefully about where you modernize those applications to. What newer servers can you actually run on? Now, here's some of the performance data that helps drive some of these conclusions. Basically, I'm painting a little bit with a broad brush here, but basically these bottom two bars are the prior generations of CPUs that are running in the cloud today, and the top two bars are the current generations of CPUs that are running in the cloud today. And again, we've normalized the 1x scale to the bottom. Right there, we're looking, it happens to be an Intel Ice Lake CPU. On top of that, we have prior generation AMD EPYC CPU, and then the current generation Intel in the dark gray. And on the top is the current generation of AMD EPYC CPUs. And what we're doing here is we're looking at a benchmark that tests the general performance of a CPU. I'll go into some application specifics later. But you can see there's a pretty dramatic difference in the performance across these 4 different CPUs that a lot of you are probably running on today. If you leverage the performance, you get faster runtime or smaller deployments. That's what drives lower cost. So let's compare the top bar to the bottom bar. If we're running at 3x the performance, that means you only need 1/3 of the runtime or 1/3 of the infrastructure to accomplish the same job at the same level of performance. And so that's the impact that performance can have. So let's look a little bit about what is the impact of performance, of processor performance on your infrastructure OpEx. So typically, there was a little bit of a copy-paste error with this slide, so it's a little bit funny looking. Oh, actually looks like it's fixed in this version. So typically what I've seen from talking again to dozens and dozens of customers and dozens of partners, only about 1/3 of the infrastructure OpEx that these customers and partners are spending on is going towards business applications and value generations, all the fancy applications like generative AI that we hear about today or advanced analytics. Everybody wants to work on that because it's hot, right? 2/3 of their spend is on what I would call general IT. This is the cost of doing business. It's not generating value for a company per se. It's enabling you to do emails and schedule appointments and submit your vacation requests, that sort of thing. 2/3 of the spend is on that. And because it's not hot and fancy, a lot of folks don't spend a lot of time looking at optimizations there. What can we do to make it better? Because it's already works. We already got it working. I don't want to touch it. I want to go work on this fancy stuff from the blue bar that looks good on your resume. That's where everybody wants to focus. So what if you could optimize your general IT by 27%, and that's what we're showing here. So if you take that gray bar and optimize it by 27%, you can shift an awful lot of spend from overhead that's subtracting from the bottom line, that's driving your stock price down, to value generation or business growth. Or a lot of times, I see most customers and partners taking those savings and reinvesting them in innovation. Generative AI and advanced analytics are probably the most common applications to consume those savings right now. And one of the reasons I see a lot of enterprises pursuing that path is because there's so much development and so much innovation in those spaces like Gen AI that when organizations plan their budget and allocate their budget at the beginning of the year, by the time they get 2 to 3 quarters through the year and these new applications that have popped up, oh, we got to have a customer service chatbot in 2 months, go make it happen. There's no budget left around for it because it's already been allocated. Well, this is sort of a secret path where you can unlock what's effectively wasted OpEx. You can unlock that and reinvest it into innovation and business growth. So that's the impact that leveraging performance-driven optimizations can have on optimizing your OpEx. So let's look at some of the data behind those performance-driven optimizations. First, we'll start with an overview across the top 3 public cloud providers. Because AMD's EPYC CPUs run jobs faster or smaller, they drive these OpEx savings. And kind of on average across these 3 different clouds, AWS 27%, Azure 20%, Google Cloud 24%, simply by making an instance or a virtual machine selection, you can impact your OpEx like that, 27%. Oftentimes, that really simply involves going to your job that's running, clicking the stop button, scrolling down to the VM or instance selector, selecting an AMD instance, and hitting go. It's really that easy. There's no refactoring, no major porting. It's really often very push button. And we can actually drive those savings up if we look at some license cost, really. License costs can be reduced quite a bit as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. And so generally from AMD, if you see us making claims about performance or cost optimization, we have a standard suite of benchmarks that we use to represent that general IT gray bar that I showed a little bit earlier. And those are shown here. We picked these because they're a broad range of applications from the front-end web tier to the middle application tier to the back office data tier where all your databases are running. And so we wanted to have a broad sample of all the kind of applications that every company that everybody in this room works for are running. On average, across all of those, and in this case, we're using an AWS example, but something similar applies across the other clouds. We're looking at M7A, which is the current gen AMD instance, and M7I, which is the current generation Xeon instance. The AMD CPUs, the EPYC CPUs, on average run 37% faster or smaller, and that's what drives a 27% lower cost. There's nothing really fancy happening here. It's just sheer performance and having people that know to think different, to think ahead when they go and make their infrastructure selection to leverage the power, the performance of the underlying infrastructure, the underlying servers that are doing the compute. Now, the impact on OpEx can get very significant when you're looking at applications, software applications that are licensed per core, such as SQL Server. So here we're looking at a SQL Server example where if the performance uplift from prior generation M6i to M7a is so significant, that's Xeon versus AMD EPYC, on average we have a 2x performance uplift just by upgrading one generation of processor. What is that 2x performance uplift? What can that do for software license cost? For SQL Server, even if I give away the infrastructure for free, SQL Server's TCO is about 80 to 90% of the TCO is driven from the licensing costs. I see a lot of heads shaking yes. Has anyone experienced pain with SQL Server or other types of software applications? I only see one, but I suspect there's more. Okay, 3. Because the performance is 2x, that means that you can run that infrastructure at half the size and still get the same performance. Double the performance, half the size, meaning that your users are going to experience the same level of performance. What does that do for the TCO? If we take AWS's bundled pricing calculator for SQL Server plus the infrastructure and look at if you upgrade one generation from M6i 8XL, that's a 32 vCPU machine, if anyone talks that level of detail, to an AMD machine, which is a 16 vCPU machine, half the size, the hourly cost, the TCO for that goes down by 45%, while coming with the 23% performance uplift. So you're not doing a cost reduction by taking lower performance, you're doing a cost reduction and increasing performance at the same time. So this is the reason why processor choice matters. A lot of folks in the industry and in practice today don't really think about it very much. It can have a very major impact, not only on your cost, but you can actually uplift your performance and delight your users more readily, especially if you're running applications that have users hanging off of them actively. Okay, so there are a set of free assessment and recommendation or optimization tools from AMD, and we have built, and we are continuing to invest in community support to help unlock these optimizations that you all can take advantage of. There's two main tools that we have. One is called the Cloud Cost Advisor, or CCA, and the other is called the EPYC Instance Advisor, or EIA. This first tool here is meant to be a quick and dirty assessment of as much infrastructure as you want to throw at it to determine, is it worth me taking any action, and also to help you identify where do you get the biggest return on investment of your time going in to optimize anything. And I've done dozens and dozens of these assessments for millions and millions of hours of monthly consumption of cloud. And on average, you kind of see the 80-20 rule here. Maybe 20%, often less actually, about 10% of the infrastructure that I've observed consumes the vast majority of the OpEx. And so the CCA helps you quickly figure out where can you get the biggest bang for your buck and how much do you think you could save? But for some optimizations, such as the SQL Server example where you're cutting the instance size in half, you got to be a little bit careful. It's possible that when you cut your compute size, your server size in half, you could potentially starve your applications of some resources, like the amount of network bandwidth or the amount of memory available. And so that's what the second tool is here for. The Epic Instance Advisor uses a lightweight telemetry footprint to look at your applications and discover their maximum utilization of things like the CPU, the memory, the network, and once we have a snapshot, that telemetry fingerprint, because we know the modern instances or VMs really, really well, we can make a very high confidence recommendation that if you do that shrink, that you've got a technically qualified solution there. Basically, it's a right sizing tool that does technical qualification of any of the transformations that you might be interested in or might like to take advantage of. So CCA is our quick cost analyzer. Within 5 minutes, if you have a cost and usage report or the equivalent from one of the other clouds, you can quickly see how much you're going to save. On average, I've done dozens of customers, millions of hours of assessments with this. On average, for customers that are running 2 generations old on most or some of their infrastructure, they get somewhere between a 37 and 39% OpEx return. And then the Epic Instance Advisor helps you right size in a technically qualified manner. What does that workflow look like? Usually it's somebody up the chain, a CFO or somebody in charge of infrastructure that gives the organizations a goal to optimize their infrastructure costs by at least 10%. Those who can think different know that they can leverage performance-driven economic benefits to have really quick and easy ways to optimize that spend, figure out how much you can save. You can go to the CCA tool. If you're doing any right sizing, use EIA to technically qualify it and then convert to lower OpEx infrastructure. But it doesn't end just there. In fact, I think probably the most important impact of these tools is going to be through integration into the FinOps ecosystem, where our Epic Advisory Services, it's that big green box in the middle, we sit between observability tools and partner services that help a lot of enterprises, especially the larger ones, go about these transformations. And so the flow looks something like this. On the left, we have all of these observability tools. Some of them are from the cloud providers. Some of them are from third-party observability tools, from AWS CloudWatch to Insights, Datadog, Dynatrace, Prometheus. A lot of times, we're integrating with partner assessments with GSIs, managed service providers, regional service providers. You can see some of them listed here, where they work with the customers to get this observability. They leverage our tools, our Epic Advisory Services, to figure out what are the optimizations that are possible. And then our Epic Advisory Services feeds back out into those partner tools who can help affect those transformations. You can do it on your own, if you just pull out this middle green box. Or you can take advantage of partners like HCL Tech, Mission Cloud, CDW, Epiuse, and WWT in order to do the assessments, recommendations, and transformations for you. So our intention is to continue to build out integration into the ecosystem, and I think this is how we can have the biggest impact on helping everybody in this room and customers all over spend their OpEx more wisely. So summary. Processor choice matters. If you only look at the hourly cost, you're missing the impact of performance. In this case, and this is a very real-world example, here I'm comparing AWS's M6i to M7a. This is a very real-world example. I've seen people make this mistake a lot. Look beyond the hourly cost and consider the performance when you're landing your applications. And if you don't have performance-bound applications, then I'm not showing them today, but there's another set of instances that are out there that are optimized for hourly costs. So there's a place to land applications that just need to sit around running all the time, and a place to land applications that are performance-bound in order to take advantage of these cost optimizations. So what to do next? If you're interested in taking advantage of any of these assessments and recommendations, please contact your AMD representatives. You can stop by the AMD booth downstairs. Feel free to stop by after the session here and we can chat. You can get detailed price performance results, access to our tools, and help assessing your environment and making those transformations. You can also contact our FinOps transformation partners that are listed here. And if you like, please connect with me via LinkedIn on the QR code that's here, and would be happy to work with you. So thank you very much for taking the time. Hope you have a good show.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. For more FinOps X 2025 content, go check out our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave comments and questions for all of our wonderful speakers. We appreciate your support.